You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the January 24th, 2023 meeting of the Michigan City Plan Commission. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. It's 6:06, and this is the regular meeting of the Michigan City Plan Commission. Mr. York, you'll be doing the roll call?
Absolutely. Mr. Balling?
Here.
Mr. Granquist?
Here.
Mr. Klender?
Here.
Mr. Lashford?
Here.
Miss Mile? Make sure I say that correct.
It's close enough. Here.
I apologize. Correct me after this. Miss Tejeda?
Here.
If I said that wrong, I apologize. Correct me afterwards as well. Mr. Zimmer?
Here.
Attorney Hill. He's present. He's elected.
I'm here.
Sorry. We have a quorum. We can hold business tonight.
Since this is our first meeting of the new year, we have election of officers to take care of. So are we going to do it like we did last time?
I can take over if you like, and then ask for nominations for president, if that would be okay with you,
Yeah.
President.
Mm-hmm. You want to just do it from there?
Absolutely. Yeah. I will open up the floor for nominations for president of the Planning Commission.
I'm happy for last year. I nominate Larry Zimmer for president.
Thank you. I accept.
Are there any other nominations? Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Balling?
Yes.
Mr. Granquist?
Yes.
Mr. Klender?
Yes.
Mr. Latchford?
Yes.
Miss Mile?
Yes.
Miss Tejeda?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmer?
Yes.
Motion approved. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So the next office is vice president. Is there nominations for that office? I believe the current vice president is Mr. Granquist.
Yes. Just for a reminder, your current vice president is Dan Granquist, and your secretary is Michael Gresham. As you know, Michael Gresham he came off the board he's sitting on a different board now.
Correct. So nominations for vice president.
I'll nominate.
I nominate Mr. Granquist.
Second.
Any other nominations? None.
I'll accept that.
Okay.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Balling?
Yes.
Mr. Granquist?
Yes.
Mr. Klender?
Yes.
Mr. Lashford?
Yes.
Miss Mile?
Yes.
Miss Tejeda?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmer?
Yes.
Motion approved.
The next office is for secretary. This is a new position. So is there a nomination for secretary?
I nominate a new member, Gigi, for secretary.
I'll second.
Miss Mile, do you accept?
Yes, thank you very much.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Balling,
Yes.
Mr. Granquist,
Yes.
Mr. Klender,
Yes.
Mr. Lashford,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Ms. Tejeda, Mr. Zimmer.
Yes.
Motion approved. Congratulations.
Great way to get your feet wet, right? Okay. So the next item of business is the approval of the approval of agenda for this evening.
Motion
There's
to
no
approve.
objections. I'll take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Balling,
Yes.
Mr. Granquist,
Yes.
Mr. Klender,
Yes.
Mr. Lashford,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Ms. Tejeda,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmer.
Yes.
Motion approved.
And then the approval of the minutes from September 22nd of 27th of last year. I assume everybody had a chance to review them. If they're okay, then we'll pick a nomination for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second. Okay, excuse me.
All righty. Mr. Balling,
Yes.
Mr. Granquist,
Yes.
Mr. Klender,
Yes.
Mr. Lashford,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Ms. Tejeda,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmer.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Mr. York, should the new secretary sign these even though she was not here last year?
I will ask Attorney Hill that I'll pass that to him, but I would say yes.
Okay.
Attorney Hill, would that be your interpretation as well?
Yes, she's certifying that those are the minutes that were approved, and they are.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so our first item for this evening is petition 903-22.
I'll read the full. This is a request by K Plus Computer Services LLC for primary plat approval for a minor subdivision known to be known as Green Trees Minor Subdivision to create two lots to allow for the continuation of the existing restaurant Blind Pig Tavern and Grill on proposed lot 1, as well as to allow for the independent future development of lot 2 for potential commercial or residential development located at 3103 East US Highway 12, parcel ID number 460123131007.000022, and they will be represented tonight by Attorney Barry McDonald. Pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. York. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Barry McDonald. I'm an attorney here in Michigan City with offices at 601 Franklin Street, and I am representing this evening the applicant K Plus Computing Services LLC in its application for primary approval of a minor subdivision. And with me this evening to my right is Mr. Shem Khalil of Global Engineering and Land Surveying. Obviously, he prepared the plat that you're reviewing. And it looks like via Zoom, Jack Capeless is here. I'm not sure how vocal he can be or whether he can respond, but I know he's there, obviously, based on the screen. Mr. Capeless is the managing member of the applicant, K Plus Computing Services LLC, and is out of state at the moment. Obviously, if there are any questions for any of the three of us, we'll be happy to answer them. Unlike some of the matters that bring me before this Plan Commission, a minor subdivision plat is one of the more routine matters, at least we hope, this evening. So hopefully there won't be too many questions for myself. We have submitted for the record all of the forms of notice and proof of notice for all the adjoining property owners, as well as the affidavit of publication with the Herald Dispatch. Hopefully those are all good form and Mr. Hale has approved. As is usually the case, I do have one more additional certified mail receipt that came in today. So I submitted that to Mr. York. Obviously, we never get 100% return. We lawyers never do in our business get 100% return. People tend to think that it's never going to be good news when it's a certified letter, and it usually isn't, I suppose. Otherwise, the minor subdivision plat and the application are fairly self-explanatory. This property is zoned B2, general commercial. Property includes and surrounds 3103 East US Highway 12, which is the address of the current Blind Pig Tavern and Grill. The total site is just under 10 acres in size. My client is the owner and landlord of the entire parcel, including the Blind Pig facilities. Obviously, that current setup will comprise Lot 1. The remaining acreage will comprise Lot 2, and that's kind of the undeveloped parcel that exists. And quite honestly, as I sit here before you, my client does not have any immediate plans for that surrounding acreage. What this minor subdivision plat is really about is flexibility. In other words, it gives him the opportunity to continue to lease the Blind Pig location, potentially allow the operators there to continue with that lease, potentially purchase the property, potentially sell the Blind Pig someday in the future. It just creates a better commodity and frees up then the remaining acreage for whatever future development Mr. K Plus or some other partner may come along and want to do. Obviously, it's well suited for commercial development, potentially residential development, and I would envision that those would be the two long-term uses. So that's a very brief summary for what we have here. As always, I thank the commission for its time and attention, and if there are any questions for myself or Mr. Khalil, certainly happy to answer them before you consider this matter. Thanks again.
Thanks, Barry. Skylar, let's hear your report, and then we'll hear the attorney report, and then we'll take questions.
Okay, absolutely. This is a report for case number 903-22, to be known as Green Trees Minor Subdivision. This is for primary plat. The petitioner is requesting the approval of a 2-lot minor subdivision located in general near the southeast corner intersection of US Highway 12 and Carwick, also known as 3103 East US Highway 12. Staff analysis. Currently, there is a structure on the site, which is a restaurant. The parcel of land is zoned B2 General Commercial. The petitioner submitted a primary subdivision to split the parcel into 2 new parcels of land. The existing structure will remain on proposed Lot 1. The current configuration of the structure is conforming to the setbacks of the B2 zoning district, which that's important because we can't split something and make the structure non-conforming. So they meet the conformity of that structure. Proposed Lot 2 conforms to the required frontage of 100 feet for the B2 zoning district. So the other thing with the B2 zoning district, they have to have 100 feet of frontage in order to split that. They have to maintain that 100 feet of frontage, which they have, and still kept the conformity of the building. Staff recommendation, based on the analysis and the information provided, staff recommends approval of 903-22 as submitted. And I'll leave it at that and answer questions if there are questions.
Thank you, Mr. York. Mr. Hale?
Mr. Zimmer, my report has been provided in written form, I believe. It is for petition 903-22 sub 1, and I'll explain that in a minute. The petitioner, as well as the owner of the property, is K Plus Computer Services, LLC. The engineer surveyor is Global Engineering and Land Surveying, LLC. And the request, as both Attorney McDonald and Mr. York have indicated to you, is primary plat approval for a minor subdivision for property at 3103 East US Highway 12. I would initially indicate to you that I've had an opportunity prior to tonight's meeting to review the notice documentation that was supplied by the petitioner. For the new board members, I would note that our rules provide that this information is to be provided on the Monday before, if possible. And that gives Mr. York and I an opportunity to review these materials and make sure that everything is presented to you. In this case, it was. I would like to also indicate, because Mr. McDonald indicated that he was giving us a second green card, that what's required is certified mailings at least 10 days prior to our hearing. And to prove that, we require that they submit the white mailing receipts, which are stamped with dates at the post office. And I have seen one for everyone that is required to be given notice, which is everyone that owns property within 200 feet of the property. I also review on every occasion all of the green cards, which are signed by the mail recipient when the post office delivers it. But because we can never assure that individual property owners will pick up their mail or they're going to cooperate with that process, we only require that they be mailed out. And that was done in this case. Next, this is a rather simple version of our subdivision process. A minor subdivision permits splitting of a lot to create two new lots. It may be, and it has before this body in the past, been the case where two new lots are created and the original parent lot remains, or at least a portion of the original parent lot remains. That would mean there would be 3 lots left. That is not the case for tonight's petition. The petitioner took a single parcel of land and is splitting it into 2. As Mr. York indicated to you, both of those parcels have to meet all of our zoning code and subdivision code requirements. He has reviewed that and indicates that it does. And I've looked at all of the other documentation supplied by the petitioner. As I indicated, he supplied all of the notice requirements, but he's also supplied all of the other documents that are required by our rules for the application for a minor subdivision. The process in general for a minor subdivision is that the petitioner files a petition requesting it. This matter is put on the agenda of this body, the Plan Commission, and the Plan Commission holds a public hearing, which is what is occurring this evening. Following that, you would vote to determine if the petition meets both our subdivision ordinance and zoning ordinances, and if they do, you would approve the subdivision, the minor subdivision, for primary plat. The developer, the petitioner, then has 120 days to install any permanent improvements or to make any additional changes, and that is then brought back to Mr. York's office for review of the what's called secondary plat approval. That does not require a public hearing before this body. So that's the process. The standards that you are to consider are discussed in my report, but in general, I would summarize it in this fashion. The proposed minor subdivision simply has to meet both our subdivision ordinance and our zoning ordinances. That's something that you are to determine. and then vote accordingly. I don't have anything further unless you have some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Any questions from the board members regarding this petition?
This may cross over into the area of zoning, but as I look at this plat and the existing businesses to remain, as we understand, and it appears just from the markings on here about some of the area used by the Blind Pig that it goes into the new lot, and so there is maybe some overlap. But what comes to mind is parking, and will parking for the Blind Pig be impacted? Will they have sufficient parking? And that obviously is a zoning question, but can we approve this if it impacts something like that that's vital to the restaurant? And the other thing that would come up is whether there's any utilities that also cross the lines of the two sites. So just those two questions.
Yeah, I should have spoke about utilities. The only people we heard back from utility wise. So when we get these in, we circulate out to all the utilities, respective utilities, water, sewer, fire. Fire responded back, said they don't have any issues. I didn't get a response back from the other, so I assume they don't have any issues there. We're not showing any easements. They would have probably popped up on here if we had any easements, and they're not asking for any easements. So I would assume that their service probably comes off 12. I probably could be mistaken on that, but probably off of 12. They're not asking for it. They would have asked for any easements prior to us approving, or prior to us approving secondary plat, probably. And then with respect to parking, they should be okay on parking. I guess one of the questions is though, at a time when they should develop or want to develop this piece, that might be something we have to look at that time. I assume they're probably going to function as is right now, but I guess her question's a valid question. You also have a fence, if you will, and I know that me and Mr. Capeless talked about that. Is it going to remain? Obviously, there's always reciprocating easements that they could give each other. He owns all of it now. I would just assume that now would be the time to do that if you should choose to do that while you own it all. So I don't know if that's something you can in consideration on any of that.
I think they're all valid points, and certainly the current use is going to continue. Again, Mr. Capeless has no immediate developer, buyer. He has no immediate plans himself to develop. So for the time being, unless Mr. Capeless, who is or was anyway, participating, has something more updated than the last time he and I spoke, we're going to leave everything as is. Obviously, if he feels the need for me as his attorney to formalize some type of easement agreement, license agreement, consent to encroach agreement, we do those all the time in situations, not just here when we're kind of at the inception of a subdivision, but we just do it all over the place to clean up landowner issues. Certainly Mr. Granquist is well aware of those. But for the time being, we're going to leave it as is. Obviously, if a new development comes, it's going to probably need every bit of that property, because that's going to obviously be the access point for the future development to the rear of the property. So the gravel is kind of innocuous that I see on the plat, that presumably as an access road gets developed or a driveway gets developed would be either utilized or replaced. The real question is the fence. That I don't know. I suspect that if in fact development occurs in the back, the fence would probably need to be moved, or there'd probably be a slight easement agreement for it.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Sham Khalil, Global Engineering, 601 Franklin Street. So regarding the fence is movable. So anything that is not a structure or falling in the setback, it can be moved during any new development. Mr. Capeless actually assured that to either the Blind Pig or any new development will come in. So the fencing itself is not a structure, that is an encroachment structure. So it's falling within the setback, and he owns both land as it stands right now. Unless that change, the fence will change.
More important question is the parking. And this is a question maybe more for the Department of Planning than the applicant, but because if everything operates as usual now, if the day comes that the development occurs and the parking is not sufficient for the restaurant at the size it is now, does that come back in and then there has to be a reduction? I mean, if it came to that, a reduction in the number of people that could be seated in the restaurant.
Yeah, and I think we'd have to look at that at a time when they would propose something new to take up this space. Obviously, it's 100 feet of space.
Barry?
The road is typically 100 feet wide, so or 100 feet of right of way. So we'd have to look at the.
I see Mr. Capeless with his hand up actually too.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Capeless. You can speak.
Can you hear me? Okay, Council?
We can, Jack.
Okay, thank you. So just to address the parking, I don't run the business or involved in the business. I'm the landlord on it. And I spoke to them and I want them to continue. The way it's drawn up, now they park to the left, which would be in the new lots, 100 feet. But they have a lot of parking they don't use on the right. And if you look at it, there's a lot of room behind the building. So there's plenty of ways to reconfigure the parking if, in fact, the 100 feet driveway for the back lot in the future, can't be used for parking. They have a lot of parking.
Yeah, and I mean, we would have to look at that at a time when they change or something like that. I don't know that through this process I can make them do something different at this point in time. Because they're just simply subdividing the land, splitting the land apart. But I believe at a different time when they would come in and say, hey, we're ready to develop proposed lot 2, then we'd have to really look at what's being proposed. Also, if it wanted to go residential, it'd have to get rezoned. So that even has to come back through you guys at that point in time for rezoning. I don't know if we answered your question or not. I would just say that they probably have plenty of parking. It's graveled, unfortunately. It would be hard to count, I guess, or it'd be better if it was, laid out, where we could actually see how many parking spots they have. But just doing quick calculations on the square footage, we could do something like that. And we could do that before primary plat, or I'm sorry, before secondary plat, if you like.
And there ought to be something in the record to reflect that. And maybe to reflect the fact that the property owner is continuing to let the business use that land so that there's no reduction in the parking, but that there's a plan in place for something to take place so that there is safe and adequate parking when the day comes.
When the day comes. I don't disagree. We could do that between now and secondary plat. You get some calculations. I mean, I don't know if I can, he's not doing a major renovation to this building. If he was coming in and remodeling the building or adding on to it, at that point in time, I think we could kick in, say, okay, you got to pave this parking lot, but I don't know that we can do that through this subdivision process. Would be my concern. So
It's not in the site plan process.
yeah, absolutely. It's not. It's part of the site plan part. Yeah, correct. Right now, we're talking about just simply splitting it apart for future use. Anyways, that'd be my comment. That we could probably get some calculations between now and secondary and present those. Yeah. If that would that help out a little bit? Clarify.
I think so. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Jack, did you follow that? I think if the issue is, we could probably get out there and have Mr. Khalil run some measurements and find out what's available on the lot itself without spilling over onto the other. And it could be that it's far more adequate than what's required by the ordinance.
Yeah, I have a feeling it will be. But I think it's just, I think I understand what's being said. And that's probably just a simple square footage calculation where, we know a parking space is X, we have X.
Right.
What's that come out to be?
18 by 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, just for quick calculations.
Yep.
Versus, what's in the restaurant. I mean, yeah, we could do that.
That'd be okay.
Yeah, it seems like that's the way this board and this process works. As long as all this information's on the record, that
Yeah. So I think I would like, if I may, Mr. President, so the staff recommendation would be, I would still recommend approval of the subdivision. They have to come back to us for secondary, but between now and secondary plat, we would get some calculations and present those back to you. And then go from there. That would be my condition, if you will.
So we'll make that part of the motion then to approve.
It is the only issue, though, from a logistical standpoint, and Mr. Hale can chime in, is that typically on a minor subdivision, unlike the major subdivision, we're not coming back before this board.
Right.
And from a cost standpoint to my client, as much as it enriches myself to come back before this board, and it's fun to do, typically the minor subdivision process is one bite at the apple.
Sure.
And then we bring.
Yeah, no.
So perhaps Mr. Hale has a solution. Again, from a purely legal standpoint, I get from a development standpoint, when it comes time to develop that second lot or renovate the Blind Pig, parking is relevant. But from a purely legal subdivision standpoint, I just don't want to hold up the process if we've met the criteria of the ordinance and the state statute.
Our only review here is drawing the boundary lines.
Right.
Yeah.
And not evaluating zoning, not evaluating building codes, not evaluating all those other kinds of things. So if you met the criteria, then it seems to me that it should be
really
done.
Yeah, really the only zoning we look at is, do you meet the setbacks, and are we making anything non-conforming with respect to the building and structure?
But having said that, I don't have any problem between now and when your office would sign off on a final plat.
And then I could present that back for,
You can report it back at the next meeting for that matter. But I suspect from a square footage standpoint, I don't think we're going to have any issues.
I really don't think so. I think it's just a matter of getting doing some calculations.
Mr. Zimmer, may I?
Yes, sir, Mr. Hale.
Skylar, the final plat comes back before your office.
Correct. It just comes to me. Yep. Yes.
And if there's a motion that they want information as to the adequacy of parking in that motion, you could review that and determine what the case was. Yes?
Yes. Kind of almost like doing a zoning review of it as if it was a new, if you will.
But we all understand, as Mr. McDonald and Mr. Granquist indicated, there's only one bite of this body. We trust you to take the second bite and make sure that everything is done according to our subdivision and zoning ordinances.
Correct.
Okay. Well, then
For this one, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
That's my comment. Thank you.
From the standpoint.
Yeah. We could do that.
So we do not need any conditions then on this motion.
I would say with that in mind, no, as long as we, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Is there any public comment related to this petition? Do we have anybody watching that wants to comment? No. Anybody here want to comment?
No.
Okay, public comment.
Wait, Mr. Capeless, did you want to comment again? I see your hand still up. I'm sorry.
I think you just didn't take it down.
Okay, fair enough.
So public comment is closed. If there's no more comments from commissioners, then board members, then we will take a motion.
Then we approve I move that we approve the minor subdivision as submitted with the application as recommended by staff. As submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
I second. Good.
Mr. Ballin, you seconding?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Ballin,
Yes.
Mr. Granquist,
Yes.
Mr. Klender,
Yes.
Mr. Lashford,
Yes.
Miss Mealy,
Yes.
Miss Tejeda,
Yes.
and Mr. Zimmer.
Yes.
So motion approved for the primary platform for this subdivision.
Great. Congratulations, Mr. McDonald. Thank you. Mr. Khalil. Thank you. And thank you for your comment. That was a very good contribution. Way to kick off your new position. Great. Well, we're glad you're here. All right, so any new business or old business, Mr. York?
Not for tonight, but in the future, we probably will be. We're working on some ordinance changes and some updates, and hopefully be bringing those to you in the near future.
Okay.
We're in review process and making sure that they make sense process. So
Great, thanks. Is there any other public comment this evening regarding this petition or anything else? Public comment period is closed. Any other commissioner comments?
Just want to wish everyone a happy new year. It's good to get back together. We look forward to a lot of development and excitement, and if Global can keep boosting the development here, thank you for the presentation, and I look forward to more things coming up. Welcome to our new members, Gigi, and thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Granquist. Ms. Tejada?
Actually, it was a question for the Planning Commission. In terms of setbacks, what is the process for changing the amount of setback?
So to change setbacks, it takes a zoning code change.
Zoning, okay.
It's a code change. If you're just looking at one property, so say just one person comes in and they say, setback's 20, I gotta set, this house will not fit. It's gonna have to be at like 18. Just making up things. That could be heard through the Board of Zoning Appeals. If they wanted to take that chance. Now, if we were trying to do a blanket where we think that all setbacks should go from 20 to 10, then that would be a blanket change, and we would do that through this planning commission body.
Okay, thank you.
If we felt that we need. Yep.
Any other commissioner comments? If not, I have some general information I'd like to share with everyone. As many of you know, I've been a supporter of a non-for-profit out of Indianapolis called Carbon Neutral Indiana. And the director of that organization is Daniel Pointer, and he's written a book called Carbon Neutral Indiana, A Practical Guide to Climate Optimism. And I brought a copy as I want to give a copy to everybody on this board. It would be very it would be great if everybody would read it and take it to heart. And it's a very easy read, and it's full of great ideas for how you as individuals in your homes, and also as we think about how the city goes forward in the future, how we can contribute to reducing our carbon footprint as a city. And that's a huge undertaking, but it is being done in other parts of the country, and it would be great if we could all be on board with that as well. So it all starts at home, but then let's bring it into the work that we do here, and how you talk it up with your friends and neighbors and coworkers, etc. So with that, everybody.
Thank you.
So if there's no other comments this evening, then we are adjourned until the next meeting, which is February 28th, right here, 6 o'clock. Thank you for being here.